All right, hi guys, it's Miss Hagan. We're trying something new today. What? Um, today we're going to be talking about module, I think this is 12, yeah, module 12 about biomes, and part of chapter 4, and this is going to specifically focus on the terrestrial biomes. So we all know, hopefully, that terrestrial means land, right? So these are the land biomes. Next class we'll be talking about the aquatic biomes. So, spoiler alert, right? What I want you guys to do is go ahead and do this master challenge. So when we do these kinds of videos, we're going to be having a master challenge. And what a master challenge is, it gives you a little background and then ask you a few questions. So I know you guys can read this one, but since this is our first one, we're just going to go step by step. So this one says that climate affects the distribution of species around the world. Areas that have a particular combination of temperatures, precipitations, and specific life forms on land are terrestrial biomes. So the questions I want you to answer, just using what you know about biomes, because I'm sure you know a good bit about them, you should, is what kind of characteristics do we use to identify them, and which biomes do you think have the longest periods during which water demand exceeds the supply? So which ones don't have a lot of water? Okay, and just use your prior knowledge. Go ahead and pause the video here and go ahead and type this on the Word document that you should have found in It's Learning. Okay, so great job on that master challenge. Got it done. Cool beans. Let's move on. So last time in class we talked about climate, and we looked at climate and the different things that impact climate and weather and all that jazz. And one reason that we talk about climate and biomes together is that climate dictates the biome, especially the terrestrial biomes. And one way that we were able to determine what kind of biomes we have, just more so than based off of observation, is looking at something called a climate diagram. So a climate diagram there's two examples here on this slide. These are really great ways for us to look at what is average for that area. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at the averages. We're looking at the average temperature, average precipitation. So you can see that the bottom is the months, and they have the letters that they start with. Okay, so there's a lot of J's, a lot of M's, a lot of A's. On the left side, you have the temperatures, and these are in Celsius, always, okay? And then we have on the right side precipitation, and that's going to be in millimeters. So remember, it's precipitation, not rain. This is including snow, sleet, and hail along with that. And so you can see these two different lines here. We have a blue one, and we have a red one. Okay, and so these are showing different things. So it's important that you be able to read this and be able to see what it is telling you so that you can understand and pick out which biome that these go along with, which you're going to have to do later on. Okay, so that's important that you pay attention to this and know how to do that. So this is a map that shows all the different biomes. There's a link here. I'm not going to play it. You can watch this by yourself. You can pause the video and watch it. This is to Crash Course Kids, where Sabrina talks about habitats and biomes. So I would encourage you to check it out. It's super cute. It involves polar bears. But when we talk about biomes, we can break our biomes out into three different categories or sections they fall under. So the first one is going to be the boreal forest, tundra, and the polar ice cap. So these are our really cold biomes. They have really low temperature, really low precipitation, and so we group these three together. Okay, and then our next grouping is going to be our temperate biomes. So you can see them, they're outlined in the black. This is going to be your temperate rainforest, this temperate seasonal rainforest, which you guys might know as the deciduous forest, temperate grassland, and woodlands and shrublands. And then our last section is the tropicals, which I use a tropical color. Wasn't that smart of me? It's so cute. But anyways, tropical rainforest, tropical seasonal forest, and subtropical deserts. And so we're going to go through each one of these individually. This image is in your book. I love it. I think it's great. It shows the equator and 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south of the equator, which is important when we talk about some of these biomes. Okay, so this might be a good reference point for you to look at when you're working on stuff later. So the first one we're going to talk about is the tundra. And the tundra is a very, I guess, cold place. Not a lot of people live in the tundra. Doesn't have trees. There's very little vegetation. The vegetation that's there, it grows really low to the ground, which is an adaptation. It does this because the tundra has really high winds, and plants are not able to get a good root base, meaning their roots aren't really able to go deep down in the soil. They spread out wide, and that's because the soil is frozen. And that frozen soil is called permafrost, and permafrost is permanently frozen soil. Even in the warmer months when a lot of the soil thaws out, it is still frozen. That part is called permafrost. So we find this, you can see in a lot of northern areas on here. You can see right here, this map shows you where a lot of those are, and it is very cold area where you would find that. And I don't like the cold, so I probably would not enjoy the tundra, but it looks nice in the summertime. Our next one is the boreal forest. Now the boreal forest, you may also have heard it called the taiga, like the rapper, right? So of course, I like the boreal forest. But the boreal forest is where the coniferous trees are. So remember, coniferous trees are trees that have cones, like pine trees and things like that. That's what we call, they're evergreens. They're always green. That's why it's evergreen. They are able to tolerate really cold winters. They have very short growing seasons. A lot of trees there, they grow very tall but very thin because they don't get a lot of nutrients. One adaptation that they have is that they do have cones. And the cones, if you remember, a cone is shaped kind of like, it's on a pine cone is like an up-down cone. Like it's like bloop, bloop, like an up-down triangle. That's so the snow can fall off of that cone, so it doesn't get too heavy and the tree's branches break. The same with the pine needles. Pine needles are waxy, and that's so that the snow will fall off of that. So that's an adaptation that these trees have. You can see that they are, a lot of it's in Russia, North America, a lot of Canada is a lot of this. You can see that in this map here. Whoa. That this is where they are located, the boreal forest, aka taiga. Now, we're moving into from the first section that we talked about, which was like the polar caps and the tundra and the boreal forest, into the temperate zone. Okay, the temperate zone is in mid-latitudes. This means that it is not at the extremes, at the poles, nor is it like near the equator. This is the mid-latitude. So where we live in a temperate region. But there are 4 different biomes within the temperate region in the world. And the first one we're going to talk about is the temperate rainforest. So you guys might have heard of the tropical rainforest, but there's also the temperate rainforest. So the temperate rainforest is kind of like the cold rainforest. It has really moderate temperatures, but it has a lot of rain. It gets a lot of precipitation. This is where we may find the redwoods. If you've ever had the opportunity to travel there, or you ever get the opportunity to go see the redwoods, you should. You'll feel like you're in Jurassic Park. It's cray-cray. That's a picture. This is a picture of them here. But this biome has shrunk. It's gotten a lot smaller because there's been a lot of logging in the temperate rainforest. And so you can see on the PowerPoint slide where it is located, but a lot of these are protected, at least in North America, and it's a very, very special biome. It's a shrinking biome. So if you ever get the chance to go see it, like, go nerd out and be like, whoa, look at this biome. It's so cool. The next one we are very, very familiar with, the temperate seasonal forest. Okay, you may know it as the temperate deciduous forest, but let's be real, none of us can spell deciduous, so let's go with seasonal. Okay, and that's also what your book calls it, which thank you, book. So this is where we live. We live, and we have very distinct seasons here. We have very warm summers. We can have cold winters. One very special characteristic of a temperate seasonal forest is that the trees are deciduous, which means they lose their leaves. And we have a lot of broadleaf trees like beech, oak, maple, a lot of those trees. And we're, currently in the season where we're going to get to experience watching our, unique deciduous trees change colors. But we're not the only area in the world that has temperate deciduous trees. Japan, China, Chile, a lot of Europe, and Eastern Australia have it. And so it's very diverse area, kind of spread around, but it's an awesome biome in my personal opinion. But, it's where I live, so yeah. One that you guys might have gotten to visit is the temperate grasslands, or we know it as the prairie. And this is areas where there's not a lot of trees. There's a lot of grasses that grow there. They have really cold winters and really hot summers, okay? When I think about this, I think of like Oklahoma, Chicago, Kansas City, places like that. And that is a very large portion of our country. And you can see where it is located throughout the world. Boom, right there. And so we use this a lot. This is where it's like the breadbasket of America. This is where a lot of our food is grown. This is where we have a lot of cattle grazing or, hanging out. So that is one way that we use the grasslands, and it's a very special biome for us. And now one that we don't talk about a lot when you learn about biomes is the woodland or the shrubland. Now, if you've ever had the opportunity to travel to California, particularly Southern California, you have been in this biome. I got to go see this biome. It's very, very different from what we have here. It's very dry. It's very hot in the summertime. They have lots and lots of wildfires, which they have been experiencing recently. If you guys listen to the news at all, then you probably know that there's been a lot of fires going on out there, and people have had near LA and places like that. So it is a very dry area, but does still get some rain. There's a lot of shrubs that grow there. And the plants that grow there are very much adapted for that. And so it's called different things throughout the world. Where we live in America, we call it the Sharpelle. In other areas, it's called different stuff. Like I think it's called like the Pampas in South America. I'm probably butchering that word because I do not speak Spanish, but it's Spanish based. Okay, moving into the tropics. So the one biome that like everybody loves, or majority of people really like, is the tropical rainforest. And so the tropical rainforest, it is around the equator, very close to the equator. Do you guys hear my dog? Anyways, it's close to the equator, and it's very, very diverse. It has a lot of biodiversity, which we're going to talk about a lot more what biodiversity is, but just for the sake of this, we can break biodiversity down into two words: bio, diversity. So what's bio? Yeah, it's life. What's diversity? Well, it's different, change is diversity. We are a very diverse school, and area where we live. So they have a lot of different species because it's a very unique area. And I've never been to the tropical rainforest, but I would love to go. And then one other one that we think about a lot, especially if it being in Africa, that's me. I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I always think about this, the tropical seasonal forest or savanna being in Africa. And it is the majority of Africa. The rainforest is in Africa as well, like the Congo area. But the savanna is also in South America, as well as parts of Southern Asia, which, makes sense. But for some reason, I always think it's Africa. But anyways, what the savanna is, it's marked by two major seasons, the wet and the dry season. And those are pretty self-explanatory. The dry season, it gets very dry, it doesn't rain. There can be fires out there. The wet season, it pours down rain. And this is when like you get a lot of the trees and the grasses and things like that, they really bloom out, and that's when they start to try and reproduce. And this is caused by the ITCZ, which we talked about last time, and it's in the previous PowerPoint if you don't remember what that is. But that has to do with weather patterns and how the winds move and things like that. And so the savanna is a very hot place, and a lot of people live there, but I don't think it's for me. And the last one that we're going to talk about is the one that most people think of when they think of a desert, which is the subtropical desert. Now, there are a lot of deserts in the world. One of the biggest deserts is the Sahara Desert in Africa. But we have a desert in the United States called the Mojave, not Mojave, okay, not Mojave, it's Mojave Desert. And it is pretty big. I've never been there. Again, deserts not for me. But deserts, they are very hot during the day, and they get very cold at night. There's not a lot of precipitation. Does not rain there very often. When it does rain, the plants and animals really savor that. A lot of the plants and the animals in that area are very adapted to be able to handle those extreme temperatures and have different do different things. Like there's a lot of like hares there, like they're like rabbits, but not. Their ears are very large, and that has a lot of surface area, and that allows them to be very cool. A lot of the plants there, they store water in different ways, and that helps them to survive. And so I did want to point out that this image down here, this picture is from the Mojave Desert. Looks like a cool place, or maybe a hot place. That might be better. Okay, so that concludes this little PowerPoint. Now, this is really important. You need to do this quick check. Now, there are 4 questions here, and I tried to go over them in some form or fashion while going over this PowerPoint with you guys, but there are some here that maybe, you need to use some intuition. Go back and read through the PowerPoint some. Maybe pause it on certain slides to help you out. You need to do this on that Word document where you did the Master Challenge. So make sure if you have any questions that you let me know. Feel free to, ask me in class, or send me an email or whatever. But thanks for listening, and I hope you guys like it. Let's do it again sometime.